The Deserter's Confession by Reuben White. The lantern had maybe an hour left in it. Private Elias Cord sat on the hay bale beside him and leaned his rifle against the barn wall. Not because he planned to use it, but because holding it started to feel like a lie he was tired of telling his hands. Outside, the September wind moved through the Carolina pines in long, slow exhales, like something enormous trying to calm itself down. He looked at the small mirror propped against the water trough, found his own eyes, held them. "All right," he said quietly. "All right, Mama, here's the truth of it." He'd rehearsed nothing. That was maybe the only honest thing left he could offer. The field at Beaumont Cross smells like copper and wet dog and something sweet underneath it all that I still can't name, and I pray to God I never do. He ran a thumb along his jaw. They tell you in the pamphlets it smells like glory, like iron and sacrifice. Men who write pamphlets have never laid face down in a ditch with another man's blood cooling in their collar. He paused. Listen to the wind. You want to know the sound? It isn't the cannon. Everybody talks about the cannon. The cannon you get used to. The cannon is almost honest. You see it coming from a mile of sky. No, the sound that stays with you. He pressed 2 fingers to his sternum. Is the sound a man makes when he understands it's him. Just that one moment, when understanding arrives before the pain does. It's barely a sound at all. It's more like a word getting canceled. He looked away from the mirror for a moment, toward the barn door, its old boards threaded with pale light from the moon. I heard that sound 11 times at Beaumont Cross. I counted. I don't know why I counted. Maybe so somebody would. Outside, hooves. Slow ones. Deliberate. Elias was flat against the far wall before he'd made any conscious decision to move, his back pressed to the timber, the lantern between him and the door throwing his shadow enormous and trembling up the rafters. He held his breath and listened to the horse pass. One rider unhurried, the hoofbeats fading up the road toward Colton's mill. He stayed against the wall for a long time after the silence returned. Then, slowly, he walked back to the mirror, sat down. "You still there?" he asked it. "Good. So am I. That's the whole argument, if you want one." Captain Reyes gave us a speech before the charge. Beautiful speech. He had a voice like a church and words like a flag snapping in good wind, and I believed every syllable of it. "I did, Mama. I want you to know that I believe it the way you believe in a thing before you've held up to the actual light." He laced his fingers together. The cause was righteous. Maybe it still is. I'm not the man to say anymore. But somewhere between the speech and the ditch, the cause stopped being a thing I could find. And what I found instead was just men, hungry men and frightened men and boys who looked like they'd been told the whole world was a door they were supposed to run through. And I thought... He stopped, pressed his mouth together. I thought, who decided this door? He looked directly into the mirror then, not at himself, but through himself. The way a man looks when he's trying to talk to someone who isn't in the room. Tell me something. You, watching me right now, wherever you are, would you have stayed? You can lie to me if you want, but don't lie to yourself. He spread his hands, palms up, a small and open gesture, almost pastoral. Would you have stood up out of that ditch and walked back into that sound? For a cause your heart had already quietly resigned from? Would you have died neat and purposeful? So the pamphlet writers would have new material? Or would you have done what I did? Would you have just walked? The floorboard near the ladder creaked. The sound was small and specific and utterly interior. No wind behind it. And Elias was on his feet with a rifle raised before his lungs had completed their last breath. Nothing. Shadows. A barn cat's yellow eyes catching the lantern from the loft, blinking once, gone. He lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. He looked at them with something close to clinical interest. "Used to be steady," he told the mirror, when he'd sat back down. "Before Beaumont Cross, I could thread a needle on horseback. My sergeant said I had God's own patience in my fingers." He set the rifle across his knees. God took it back, I guess. Maybe he needed it somewhere else. The lantern guttered. He glanced at it. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. That's not what this is." He looked back at the mirror with something that was too worn out to be defiant, but was in that neighborhood. "I'm not even sure I'm asking for mine. I just needed someone to know that I was there, that I counted the sound 11 times. that I know exactly how a field smells after men have decided it's worth dying on, and that I held that knowledge up to the light and made a different decision, a live decision. He was quiet for a moment. I hope that means something. Down the road, when this is all settled and the pamphlets are written and everyone has a version of it that they can hang on the wall. He touched the mirror frame briefly with 2 fingers. I hope somebody somewhere leaves a little room for the man who counted and walked. I hope you leave room. He blew out the lantern. The dark came in completely, and the wind moved to the pines again, that long, slow breath. And somewhere up the road toward Colton's mill, the horse and rider had long since disappeared into whatever version of the world they were still certain about. Elias Cord pulled his coat, closed, and listened to the barn breathe around him. He was still there. That was the whole argument. That was all of it. And